Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 160th, I was going to say anniversary, but episode of our first YouTube run through Book of Hours, playing as the artist. Now, there's a small change in terms of my setup here. I finally have a tablet for notes again, and it's actually a little bit bigger than the last one, so I'm sure there will be the sound of something dropping on the ground, followed by profound sadness. But it's probably going to take me a little bit to get back, kind of get that back to being the main note-taking device. But hopefully that means there will be a little bit less sound of shuffling papers and other goodies. So we're at the start of a new week. So it looks like I had a bit set aside in terms of the day's plans. I think the best thing for me to do is actually just quickly... Alright, so yes, we're reading a book. We've got a familiar passage. We're working on door and wall, which I believe all of these have been accounted for. So maybe it's just a matter of continuing to talk with Mrs. Kill. I suppose one thing I could have tried would be to see if I can make something happen with the rattling tunnels, but you know what? I think I'm just going to... I'm going to let these timers run their course, and hopefully that will save me a little bit of time in terms of getting everything set up for today's work. So we're on the Affair of the Messenger's Casket. In a hidden fold in the mountains above the city of Cluj lies the enigmatic riddle they call St. Mihail's coffin. Decades of patient work have finally breached its outer shell. Alright, Ambrose Westcott was a capacious gentleman, and he ensured the springs in his fortress were calibrated to bear any conceivable weight. 200 years on, the springs still do their duty. Touchcraft is learnt through the tips of the fingers. So I don't recall if the aim here was to do all of the door and wall lessons. Well, no, we couldn't, because we would just be trying for the level 9 door and wall, and then we'd be moving on. And I think I was going to do something like, well, it couldn't be Wolf Stories because it doesn't have Forge. I think I was trying to move up one of the lower level items, but I don't think I made a firm decision on that. Anyways, the easiest thing for me to do right now is just hang on to conversations with Mrs. Kill. The intuition doesn't help me here. There tisn't can be no tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. Now, one of the things that can work for me here, I am working on some other texts, so it's possible that some of this moon will help me a bit later. I didn't actually pay too close attention in terms of what I would be getting, but we have some possibilities still. So we'll see where all of the different items are at the end of the the study, and then we can make some decisions in terms of what the next steps are. Alright, so as they used to say in my youth, the day is done, and so am I, but I've earned my pay. So we're going to put that straight back into the core. Cardea's Delights, the third volume of Albert Jeffrey's hypothetical theological dialogues in the Socratic mode. If Janus were an hour, Cardea might be counted among his names, but the world has never turned in such a manner, so she is not. Jeffrey discusses the living signs, signs which change their shape and whose flexibility is part of what makes it identifiable. He gives as one example the paradox of the hinge and draws comparisons with the names called twins, who would be considered hours beyond the church. He hints at the amethyst vessel, which can be sanctified by the great signs in the presence of Knock. So I should maybe just take a second here and see if the amethyst ampule, I'm trying to remember exactly what recipe that is. Great signs and great scars. Actually, you know what? We should have enough to play around with this regardless of my... That can't be... Huh. It'd be funny if it was just the amethyst ampule. Clearly the curious conch is a... I mean, the other possibility is we're aiming for a Newman. If I add... But I also don't think the amethyst ampule is the ingredient. Anyways, we'll follow the hunch. It's the moth orchid I'm looking for. Okay, well there's the 15 and that didn't cover it for us, so fair enough. It's always worth following up on those. You never quite know where the next step's going to be, or the next insight. I guess the big thing for me is that a lot of the low-hanging fruit, like the obvious stuff in terms of labels or things that you get out of books, as long as I've gotten the books, I feel like those are ones that I can... I don't know, I think they're fairly reliable. There may be something that I individually forget at the time, but for the most part, those are things that I can sort of take for granted. But it's also true that, you know, I have in terms of hypothesis that there's at least one treasure of the house which I haven't found yet. And we actually haven't unlocked the room for it anyway, so I haven't wanted to focus too much in terms of what that is. But basically, there's a... I think there's also a couple of skills where I never actually filled in all of the details, and I have noticed that for some of them, I only found out about them. They weren't necessarily... they weren't natural extensions, so like there were ones that... I think the Inks of Revelation... We've got... Well, Revelation is one of those examples, but you'll recall there was one that talked about using rose aspect, which isn't something that naturally comes up with Inks of Revelation. That's not the only case where that happens. And so the question you may raise is, well, how would you know to put such an unusual combination together? And usually the answer is that it's contained in one of the books. And so with that in mind, given the fact that there are maybe a couple of mysteries that I haven't covered yet, it's likely that there are a few recipes contained in the books that I haven't read yet. I think there's a White Book of Brittany, which I haven't read in any of the playthroughs, for instance. Although maybe we got that this time around. I'm trying to remember. Anyways, but little details like that. Those are the things that I've been a bit more, a little bit more focused on trying to pick up and pay close attention to. Just because they do wind up sort of filling in the blanks that that remained from my first playthrough on Twitch. Anyways, The Crossing to Noon. The mystic Garcia Sowry gives a picturesque account of the adventures of Franklin Bancroft, Prince of Wines, and Ava de Wolf, the Pale Lady, on their way to the hidden island of Noon. For a long time, the Blackbone pondered her next move under the moon until the moon dared to peep from behind a cloud, and the prince completed the composition of his third sestina. But the lady met the blind gaze of its open pores, waiting for the tide. Garcia Sowry acknowledges in an epilogue that it is widely known that Ava in fact tragically drowned herself and her twin infant granddaughters without ever making such a journey. But he adds contemptuously, it is also widely known that the city unbuilt will so remain, and that only one history is ever written, and that Janus is a mansus prey. Alright, so there's the salt. Sea spray, depth, sorrow. I always keep stumbling over myself when I read The Crossing to Noon, but I'll have more practice. An Almanac of Entrances. Now this is one we read a lot, a little bit like Wrapped in the King and oh, what's the other one? De Ratio Quircum. But this is just because it's really the only place where I get the secret threshold. It's not easy to draw our own doors, but it's not impossible. Anyways, we'll read it. It's the start of a new week, so I might as well catch up. So, a handbook of sealed and unsealed byways and shortcuts through the bounds, compiled by Willem Harries in the 1860s during his term as librarian of Hush House. Harries discusses the role played by the Legion de Sul and the Company of the Wolf and Gold in warding the bounds against outside influences. He warns that bounds travelers may themselves be considered outside influences. The Mansis is Ys lacks walls. Ys and the Mansis have both their gates, and there may be no gate without a wall. Thus the paradox resolves, as all who will walk in dream will learn. But the wood has neither gate nor wall, and so it is the wood whose roots may creep after us into the hours of our waking. Alright, we've got, I think, Dr. Southey? Yes, Dr. Yvette Southey, playwright, philologist, psychoanalyst, is happy with questions as with answers. So she has Kermit Kennebec and Latin, well, as well as Greek and Arecapaean. So those are two languages that theoretically I could learn. However, I already have both Kennebec and Arecapaean. I believe we are still looking for Hyksos, and we've been a little unlucky in terms of the... a little bit unlucky in terms of where or who we get that from. Okay. So, again, I want to take a look at what I've got on my list, seeing as I already wrote this out. So for Knock and Forge, we've got Secret Thresholds, Foresight, Regret, Pattern, Stolen Secret, Touch, Newman, A Curious Hunch, A Name Day Riddle, Dijumos, and An Old Moment. Now, I'm a little curious. I don't think I have the name day riddle on the way, but let me just take a minute to write these down. So, 1, 2, or not write them down, but make some marks. Oh yes, I was waiting on... Now I remember. Okay, so we've got 4 in the bag for sure. Okay. So, I think I'm just going to cool it and wait for Mrs. Kill. Maybe if it's later in the day, I might change this plan, but at the moment, I'm just going to wait for the things that Mrs. Kill can generate. All right. We will follow up with Dr. Southey, but only after the day's work is finished. I noticed there were some comments asking about feeding the dog. We have not yet completed that task, but we will. Remember that the hours are kind, even the hours are kind, and the years are kinder in Hush House, so I am assuming none of these animals are suffering. Besides, look at those eyes. Okay, gossip doesn't exactly help me, but again, we don't necessarily know what the day is going to bring. One of the reasons why I'm sort of hoarding some of these is once we know where we're at with some of these other texts. Oh, there's the name day riddle too. I'm glad I didn't try to make it then. A deceptively intricate riddle that might just teach us who we really are. Gravenius van Loren was notoriously fond of these. Is this the way to the wood? But perhaps the wood is not a suitable place for a librarian. Okay, I'm not going to take too long on this, but I do just want to mark my sheet again. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6. Okay, let me just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, Foresight and the Stolen Secret, and to be honest, I don't mind generating the Stolen Secret myself. The Voyages of Furnishon of Oriel, the impossible travels of a sea captain of the late Phoenician era, suppressed throughout recorded history. Those who read it were said to disappear. Furnishon clearly visited the Mansus, sailing the length of the Painted River. He also claims to have traversed a sea of finest sand, to have dared the blazing waves of the sun's surface, and to have descended to an underworld ocean lit by lamps of black nephrite. Furnishon's final voyage is to retirement on a peaceful island across an evening sea, where he identifies a spring whose waters will keep him safe. I will be forgotten, he declares, and this work my only trace. So this got us presumably a salt or... Okay, it's going to make it a little tough in terms of... Ooh, even my overflow is... Okay, I'm going to need to set aside some time to reorganize the library, but let's say... patterns go here. Let's make this the salt shelf. And a bunch of sea stories. We'll work on that, but again, right now we want to focus on... We want to focus on the difficult one, which is upgrading Rolling Wall. And here we've got a manual for departure. The author, who identifies herself as the Jekadu, claims to be one of the great hooded princes of the land of the river. The style is informal, even chatty. No, these doors shouldn't be recorded, but if we had only recorded things before we'd had to leave the fifth history, we would be in a much better state. So here I am writing it down, and if you don't like it, you can sanction me. The Manual for Departure lists a number of strategies, occult, martial, and political, for quick escapes. Many are irrelevant, obsolete, or enigmatic, but the manual does include a number of powerful techniques for opening portals. So there's our next secret thresholds. Now that does complicate things in terms of... so we'll add a new regret shelf in the overflow. There we go. It's a little unlucky in terms of, just in terms of the memories that we generated, but I'll get over it. Now, sea lessons, definitely something that I can start to level, or sea story is something I can definitely level up right now with clouds, intuition, and gossip. And so I intend to do exactly that. Let's go from 2 to, actually, while we're at it, let's also move this up appropriately. So we'll take you up to level 5. In this case, I think the clouds make a lot of sense to add in, and we'll do gossip as well. So I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. I think I'm still okay letting Mrs. Kill do her thing. Better now. And I am going to use the core. So manual labor, there's not much work on offer at Brancrude, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs. I could try and renew an element of the soul, but I'm not quite convinced I need that yet. A lot of this sort of rests on what other memories I can get from Mrs. Kill. Okay, Revelation doesn't do much for me. There it is in Camino Tizard. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. one small argument for using up one of these elements of the soul right now. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the 8 that we require. Oh yeah, actually, with inescapable confinement, I really should just be throwing that in there. I think I tried to put down 9. We'll see how Mrs. Kill handles it, but I think I'm probably going to get a stolen secret, because we have a surplus in terms of elements of the soul. You know what? We'll do that right now. So I don't need the whist. And I believe it is just the Gospel of Zacchaeus that gives me the stolen secret. Oh, hang on. No, we've got several that give me stolen secrets now. So let's do deaths and their evasions. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. So the thing that's nice here is that if Mrs. Kill winds up giving this to me within the next 30 seconds, that's fine. We just apply one of our elements of the soul to level this up, and then we still have some leftovers for the rest of the day. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to get the cycle going with the manual labor again, because I still have the opportunity of I still sort of have the opportunity to make things happen over the course of the day. So this is kind of the drop everything and get things done point, which is roughly going to coincide with finishing the book, I believe. And then at that point, you know, if we have a surplus in terms of elements of the soul, maybe we'll catch up on a couple of things that I've been meaning to do. But overall, it's just a little bit easier to sort of know where I stand, especially with the memories that Mrs. Kill is generating. We will probably wait for evening to get Dr. Southey what they want, though. Alright, there 'tis and can be no tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now, and an impulse. It doesn't exactly make sense, but I understand it anyway. I should also take a minute here, so we need Grail and Moon for this. Not too much for us to work with right now, but you never know. We may find some other things to work with. So for instance, the salt. A little bit more of a calm day in terms of commentary and such, but I'm pretty happy with where we've wound up. I don't think I was expecting to do anything with sea stories. Maybe I was, but I am happy that we've at least got door and wall taken care of, and then we're not going to spend too much time repairing what we gave up. Okay, so solace out of that. There 'tis and give me no tizzer. We will still talk with Mrs. Kill, because she might give me something with Grail. And then Deaths and Their Evasions, Father Stanislav John Schaller writes of the means and limitation of passage between the orders of the Mansis. No long names hours. Unusually, Father John has written this book in Fusine for, he says, a special secrecy. He speaks very cautiously of the exceptions that can sometimes be made to the edicts of Chancel and Calyptra, and hints at the means by which he successfully returned a lantern long to flesh, which in this case I think is Teresa Galmier, but Schaller mentions most cautiously of all that he has been permitted to see a book that speaks more deeply on the matter, but that it was surrendered into the shadow of a covenant stone of the Watchman's Tree. This is also the one that sort of hinted to me that I should include this thing. It can be retrieved if the 99th wink is reserved under the edict's limit. Okay, so there is our stolen secret, something I overheard in dreams. Let's take the time and get door and wall leveled up right away. So that one's going to require a metal. Now I'm a little lucky in the sense that I'm probably not going to have to deal with the question of what do I do with door and wall, or the rest of the door and wall today. There's always more to learn. But my inclination is to just sort of raise the floor in terms of all these other elements of the soul. So my first choices are going to be things like, you know, Megaphene Mysteries and Solution, or sorry, Megaphene Mysteries is Moon. So, but Solutions and Separations would be an example of that. Following that, you know, I may make some other decisions, but that's kind of the priority right now. Now, as for the rest of this, the heart doesn't really help me. Neither does Sea Stories. So health, I suppose I could use to try and generate another memory. We're currently waiting on, what was it? We had it up at 5. So we need 3 memory. Basically, we need 2 more to level up Sea Stories. So I think a lot of this is going to rest on what Mrs. Kill gets me. So I don't think I'm going to regenerate anything at the Sweet Bones. Well, no, actually, I am going to regenerate something at the Sweet Bones. I will bring back an Arab, so that will free up one of my health. Better now. Okay, so bring this back. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal in a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. It is summer. I am sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones, eating crumbly cheese and nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. So the Arab will allow me to boost Sea Stories. Now, right now, so I've got 2 core no matter what. So I guess to keep chat... Actually, I was going to say I can't keep chat happy because the talk verb is going to be occupied with the dog. I was going to try and feed that, but I didn't think it through. Okay, well, what I'll do as a sort of a side task, garden the summer, carrots, tomatoes, marrows, and blessed onions, all the unsung heroes of the stew pot. We'll pick one of those up. We obviously have a reserve here, but there tis and can be no tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. So that's overall good news. I still need 1 more for the upgrade. I don't see a lot of sense in taking the chance. So I'm going to... I'm going to read a book. We'll use a beguiling melody for that, although I don't see me getting another memory from somewhere else. I don't think this is correct. I'm going to settle for the Wind's Ruin, and I want to double check that the Morphe Codex does actually give us Beguile. I'm sure it does. Like, I think I should learn to trust my filing system a little bit better. But as soon as I see the Thunderskin, I always think of, like, storms, so... alright. So yeah, let's give this a shot with the dog. Use a soul card and a suitable sustenance. Food will make a hungry beast or a wild one cooperative. So it has to be sustenance. It needs to be an egg or remains. I have an egg. Satisfy this creature's appetite. I have a bunch of ham in reserve, so I suppose I could have also fed it a ham, but... And it's a little unlucky that I didn't keep a tryst aside because I could have used solutions and separations with the impulse to get another level, but we'll maybe be able to take that overnight in the violet chamber. We can. Okay. So that'll be something I do at the start of the evening. Better now. And the book should finish momentarily. A full belly makes a helpful friend. Loyal dog, walkies are surely a small price to pay for his unshakable fidelity. Alright. The Wind's Ruin, the second volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. Abbot Thomas speaks of the time of his time as a raider when his name was not was not Thomas but Toke, scything the sea, striving for plunder. Abbot Thomas clearly regrets his storm years, and much of the book is taken up with his thoughts on penitence, but there are hints that he also misses those years and the companionship of his sword brother, ship brother, Trigev. So there's the beguiling melody. We're going to use that to level up Sea Stories. We'll get that locked in now. Now, one thing that would have been nice would be to recover one of the Newman. However, I might have slightly different plans for that this time around. So I'm not going to be I'm not too fussed about not having that overnight. St. Mihail's coffin is all the gossip, but I'm here about a different saint. So this will be a moon task when the time comes. St. Columba of the Dove. There is a story that his coffin is here at Brandkrug, one of the treasures of the house. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask about that. I respect the house's secrets, but I would like to know more about why he might have been brought here. Now, this is interesting when it talks about treasures of the house, because I was not able to make any sense of the Columbic sarcophagus. But it would seem, based on Dr. Southey's comments, that this is actually something I should be paying attention to as a treasure of the house. But in any case, Dr. Southey has a 3-moon interest, so we would need 4 moon for that. Always the tide. I used to hear that growing up when my mother thought I wasn't listening. Always the tide. Thank you, librarian. So I suppose the first 2 I would maybe try with the Columbic sarcophagus would be Pearl and Tide and Sea Stories, maybe? It's the most direct way of attacking it. I'm certainly not trying to suggest it's the only option, but... Or even the best one. I'm sorry, I'm probably stumbling over what I mean to say, but something for me to think about. All right, I know I'm a little bit over. I was kind of hoping to go to the morning. There we go. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. So, that is it for the start of this week. Thank you very much for watching. I forgot to keep the impulse. Oh well. That's life. But yeah, so it's pretty straightforward in terms of how we will handle the next couple of days. We'll take the Sea Stories up to level 5. Now, Door and Wall, again, I'll figure out exactly how I want to level things up, but my feeling here is that we probably just want to raise the overall level. So I'll essentially find anything with a knock or a forge. In fact, the easiest thing for me to do is probably just mouse over. So we've got solutions and separations and horns and ivories, and then spices and savors. So maybe we just do one for each. One for solutions and separations, one's for spices and savors, one for horns and ivories. Horns and ivories has a particular... there is actually something in particular that I would maybe want out of horns and ivories, which makes it slightly tempting to go all in with door and wall on that. So, as with most things, I sort of reserve the option. But we can save that all for another time. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all on Wednesday.